telling you right now, man, if that song does not get you hyped up for some wrestling, if you will, you ain't old enough to understand where it comes from. This is the Law of Live Audio Wrestling. And that is the only music that is older than me, ladies and gentlemen. We're talking about some old school Saturdays for myself as a child, watching some of that WTBS from the studios, where I fell in love with such characters like Nikita Koloff and those Magnum TA matches with Dusty, Ric Flair, the Four Horsemen baby. Showing up, like the original Four Horsemen, not like, Mongo McMichael and Lex Luger Four Horsemen or whatever some bullshit that was. Thank you so much to everybody who's hanging out with us this week. It's been crazy. It's been a wacky kind of a week, no doubt about it. And I'm glad that I got my Mr. Bobalina, Brady Wedham.
I'm Bob Dobalina now.
You are Mr. Dobalina.
Mr. Bobalina, Mr. Bob Dobalina, Mr. Dobalina, Mr. Bob Dobalina.
Love that stuff. It's proper. You look at me, you're like, this is not a guy who listens to De La Soul and Tribe Called Quest. Well, you'd be wrong, and a little left of center, if you know what I'm saying. So, Brady, I want to get into it this week. I want to get into it a little bit, and we're going to talk about this a little later on. Give everybody a chance. Everybody a chance to digest what's been happening.
What are they digesting there, Chris?
So we're going to talk about now we are into the last three. UFC 298, UFC 299, and UFC 300, the big one. We are moving on. It's their WrestleMania. It's like the WrestleMania of MMA would be UFC 300. And this weekend we have UFC 298 coming up, so we're going to talk about that. We're going to break down that main card, if you will. We're going to talk a little bit about what happened recently with The Rock turning, quote, I'm throwing him up there, air quotes, heel at that presser in Las Vegas, leading up to WrestleMania XL, the extra large.
Rocky sucks. We
love Rocky.
No, we want Cody. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The Cody kiss asses, I think is what they're calling them or something.
Crybabies. Cody's crybabies.
Same thing. Cody's crybabies. Are those shirts made yet?
They're definitely on their way.
They got to be coming. They got to be. And we're going to talk a little bit about, time permitting, because we're on a schedule. We're going to talk a little bit about Scott D'Amore's recent excommunication from Anthem Sports. What really happened and where is he going? That's the most important thing. So, was your week as busy as all of that, Brady?
So busy that we didn't put out an episode of The Law.
Unbelievable, right?
Yeah.
Well, that was okay. We tried.
We tried as much as we're going to try on a Super Bowl Sunday. It didn't succeed. We didn't succeed.
Listen, it had nothing
just
to
like
do
San
with
Francisco. Like San Francisco, we did not succeed.
Right? Yeah. How you doing today, Deebo Samuel? Huh? Punk?
I won money on the coin toss, and I turned the game off after it was done.
So I won coin toss. Who won the coin toss? The national anthem being under.
No.
And who scored first? And then that was pretty much it.
We bet on the weirdest shit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's fun.
It was.
Do you consider yourself a degenerate?
Well, yeah. I'm wearing a fucking Gucci hat, dude.
You don't get to have that moniker without doing stupid shit like betting on coin tosses.
You know how much of a degenerate I am? I'm wearing the same sunglasses that Dylan Dennis wore through his entire Logan Paul fight presser media.
And you know what?
And I had them before that, so that shows you how much of a real douchebag I am.
And you've thrown just as many punches.
I threw the same amount of punches that night.
Right?
Yeah.
All
right. So what else are we getting into? It's just we're going through the UFC, which I want to talk about.
Yep.
Definitely going to talk about The Rock being a bad boy.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about Mr. Mr.
Now,
Doer.
we're also I also would be remiss if I didn't mention this. I don't know if you noticed or not, but there's a lot of goddamn criminals this past week. People being wanted, people being arrested. Did you hear this one?
This is where I was kind of aiming. Yeah.
What do you want to start with? Let's start with Teddy. Let's start with our boy Teddy Hart.
I don't know anything about this Teddy situation. Explain to me what's going on with poor Teddy.
Oh, he just has a bench warrant out for him. That's all. Bench warrant because he failed to appear in court apparently in Florida.
Florida. So this is the Diddy situation that he's in.
Shocking. So he got busted for running a red light, speeding.
Oh, okay. So it's not the Diddy
and they
thing.
They found a bunch of they found some pot and a whole bunch of MDMA, and he copped to it. He copped to it apparently. Bloop, no problem. Supposed to go to court, didn't show up to court. Now there's a bench warrant. So that I mean,
that's slap on the wrist stuff in terms of breaking the law. What else you got for me?
Billy Jack Haynes.
Oh shit!
I don't know if you remember Billy Jack Haynes. This is a guy who, back in the day, one of the coolest gimmicks for myself growing up. You know what I mean? I don't know if you remember Don Owen and Portland Wrestling. Portland was one of these companies that had for myself in the 80s, Piper went through there, David Schultz, Rip Oliver, Buddy Rose, Chris Adams, Iceman King Parsons. They later on went down to World Class, right? And
WCCW. Yeah.
They were the most over dudes outside of the Von Erichs, you know what I mean? And the Freebirds, of course. So Don Owens Portland Wrestling was fantastic. Billy Jack Haynes was one of these dudes, even on top of Matt Bourne, you know what I mean? Was one of these dudes when you watched him, you're like, holy shit, that's a tough son bitch.
This is a next level kind of dude. Yeah.
Bit of a psychopath apparently through life.
Well, you're okay. If anybody has seen him recently, whether that's through a shoot interview or any sort of interview that he's done in the past 5-10 years, he has what you call a bullet. And that's his haircut. It's a bowl mullet. And I believe it's a wig that he was wearing two different. He wears one wig and then wears another one on top of it.
Oh, okay.
And that's been his style for a bit.
Okay.
And he lost his teeth years ago, which we all do. Right. He lost his teeth years ago, but decided to not pursue getting teeth. So he looked like the dude that would come, let's say you went to North Carolina, and shouts out to anybody from North Carolina. And in the mountains of North Carolina, there's people that have never been to town ever. They don't know what town is. He looks like he came down from the mountains from there to town. And he was about to tell you about, his donkey farm that he's got, and his donkey's sick and he needs medicine. This is what he's been looking like for a while. So I'm not surprised that he's in the news. What did he do? Steal something?
Well, it looks like a little bit worse than that. It looks like Billy Jack Whitaker has gone and shot his wife.
Fuck, really?
He has shot his wife to the point where she did.
Was he still living in Atlanta?
No, this was in right outside of Portland, where he's been.
Okay, so because at one point I think he said he was living in Atlanta because he was Chris Benoit's best friend before Chris Benoit killed Nancy. Now, I know there's some attachment to Nancy because Nancy got in the business originally by taking pictures with some of the workers. And I think her first photo shoot was a Brady Boone photo shoot, something like that.
Crazy stuff.
You know what I'm saying? Which is Billy Jack, if anybody's listening that doesn't know. They thought he was going to be like the next Brody Hogan. Like he was a mix of Brody and Hogan put together. He was like the perfect package.
Until you heard him talk.
Until the boys got to know him too, right? I think once the locker room, this is why he went from, because real quick, he went up to New York. They took pictures of him. They put him on the front page of their magazine. They tried to work with him a bit. Then he was back down in Portland. Then he was off over here in Texas. Then he was back over to Portland. And he was in Florida. Then he was back over to Portland. And it wasn't really like a territory thing. These were quick moves. So he was in the business for what, a cup of coffee, realistically?
Oh, not that long. He had a, quick little stint, and that was it. Okay. Nothing more. Ran a promo, and they were like, oh boy, this is not going to work out so well. But in Portland, he's a beast, absolute monster. But it shows that there's levels, and you can get exposed very quickly as soon as you
chat.
You can get exposed very quickly when you get to that level. Billy Jack Haynes was one of those guys. I'm sorry if you read the private chat, but
I apologize, listeners and watchers. Tid's ribbing me as the show's going on. He's ribbing me. No need to discuss what we're talking about. Okay, so
that's why I was in the private chat, you dildo.
No, I figured like outing you, so now you're the asshole that doesn't fill them in on the joke. So,
nope.
Yeah.
So
Billy
Jack
it looks like
gets Billy arrested.
Jack, Off. I seen, he had a standoff with the police. That somebody heard shots. They called the cops. It took about 2 or 3 hours to get him out of the house. Once they did get him out of the house, they entered the home. They had seen that his wife was shot dead, and I guess he's as far as I can read in the reports, he after the 2-hour standoff, he went willingly.
Yeah, of course he did.
Yeah,
think about it. At this age, for him, he's already lived a huge chunk of his life, behind bars as it is already. And he got out, and now he doesn't have to pay rent or a mortgage or whatever.
No,
and
but I seen him on. There was a video, whether it's like if it was a top 10 or a cultaholic or whoever on YouTube here, that had done a video years ago about murderers in pro wrestling. Like people who have killed people, whether it was like out of self-defense or whatever it was. And his name was on that list. I think he's already killed somebody.
Yeah. So there was a story that went around apparently. If you look it up, you can Google, I think it's like Kids on the Tracks or something like that.
No, it was outside of this, but I know what you're talking about. The Kids on the Tracks. He was a witness or something. Yeah. He had something to do with
apparently, according to him in stories that he has said, this is how much, take it for a grain of salt. Billy Jack Haynes, bit of another. He said he was part of it.
I forgot about that.
He said he was part of it.
I forgot about it. See, ladies and gentlemen, we don't do any research. We just go live for you.
This is just the stuff that I know off the top of my head.
I forgot.
From trying to remember stuff. But Billy Jack Haynes, bit of a nutter, so it's not a surprise that this has happened, and he's going to spend the remainder of his life behind bars at a cost to the tax-paying dollars of the citizens out on the outside.
Well, it's unfortunate if any of his family is, if he does have family, hopefully,
we all listen. It's no secret how I think about prisons, and I think their business. That's what they are. Yeah. They are business. I wonder, because you have the hardened prisons, and then you have your middle of the road, and then you have your white collar ones, where the people like Martha Stewart go to.
Wait, we don't have any thumbnails for institutionalized. Sarah, keep going. I was just looking to see if we had anything we could pop up on the screen.
I wonder how long, because we're starting to get to the point where there's going to be more and more people. I wonder how long it's going to be before somebody is in the United States is going to open up a prison, and it's going to be just for nothing but ex-professional wrestlers and MMA fighters. And
they got closed a couple years ago, sports. Man. No, we seem to either off ourselves or off everyone in the room around us, apparently.
Wild stuff.
Yeah.
Wild stuff right now. So 2024, we're into February, boys and girls, and this has been mind-boggling.
And that's a good time for me to click one of these sponsor blocks. How about that? Let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we will talk about the UFC and our upcoming UFC pay-per-view.
TotalSportCards.com, Canada's #1 stop for WWE, AEW, UFC, NHL, NBA, and NFL hobby boxes. Total Sport Cards always delivers the most sought-after products with the best price points in the market that you can find. Keep your collection up to date with TotalSportCards.com. TotalSportCards.com, proud sponsor of Sunday night's main event.
Have you checked out East End Hamilton's newest live music venue? Vertigogo is keeping DIY music alive in the 905. January 28th, Terry Green. February 3rd, Decade. February 4th, Punk Rock Matinee with Gag Order. And in the evening, Night of the Holy Spirit Drag Show. February 15th, Cheap Chocolates. February 23rd, Golden Shitters. March 8th, Sons of Arrakis. Vertigogo brought to you by F*** You 2 Productions. Fanatickets.com.
Dude, I am so stoked for the Golden Shitter show.
Are you going to be there?
No, that's just what I call mine. So I'm just really surprised that somebody else thought about that name.
Way to put yourself over.
I'm nice to my body.
That's what they used to call you when you were an altar boy.
Moving on. Welcome back to the Law Live Audio Wrestling 2.0. And
all right.
We're going to talk a little bit of the UFC 298.
We are on the road to 300, Brady. And this, I mean, listen, this main card is not going to disappoint. Let's start off very quickly with the first one. Anthony Hernandez, the number 15 guy against a non-ranked Roman Kopylov. This is exactly what you need to do. And I'm going to talk about this a little bit.
Let's go.
How I believe the rankings in the UFC are utter garbage. Absolute atrocious. Now, outside of this, what you have, and you're going to see a pattern because I'm going to lay this out.
Lay it out.
Outside of this is exactly what you want. You have the number 15 guy in Anthony Hernandez, okay, taking on who's a submission machine, taking on a dude like Roman Kopylov, who is a knockout artist trying to get into the rankings. This is the way you want these fights to start. This is perfect. Do I think that Roman Kopylov should be fighting a lot more? Yeah, absolutely. Here's a guy who's got a lot of buzz on him, trying to get into the top 15, but he only fights once a year, Brady. So on paper, he's only making, $30K a fight? You think you can live on $30,000 a year in Russia? No. So that fight is going to be a banger because I don't think that Anthony Hernandez understands the power that Kopylov has in those hands. It's unbelievable. Moving on.
What were you stating about the rankings? Are you building a case here?
You'll see.
Okay.
Moving on. And this is a fight that this is where it starts to get baffling for me. You've got a fight in the bantamweight division. Okay. Two guys, one in Merab Dvalishvili and the other in Henry Cejudo. Okay. Merab Dvalishvili is the number 2 guy in the bantamweight division. You know who the number 3 guy is? Henry Cejudo. But that doesn't make any sense because let's look at this for a second. Henry Cejudo's last fight, okay, was against Aljamain Sterling, a fight that he had taken after a 3-year layoff. His last fight before that was in 2020 against Dominic Cruz. Doesn't fight anymore. Against Marlon Moraes. Marlon Moraes. Retired. Went over to PFL, completely retired. TJ Dillashaw. Retired. Doesn't fight anymore.
Gone.
Demetrius Johnson. Those are his last fights. Those are Cejudo's last fights. He comes back, gets an instant title shot, loses, but they give him a ranking of number 3 in that division. And we're talking about a division that has Corey Sandhagen at number 4. Yeah. Henry Cejudo's never fought Corey Sandhagen. He's never fought Marlon Vera. He's never fought Song Yadong. Hell, he hasn't even fought the number 9 guy in Rob Font. Why is it that Henry Cejudo has such a high ranking? Because they don't mean shit. Rankings don't mean shit. Why hasn't Merab Dvalishvili gotten a title shot yet up to this point? Well, that's a different fucking kettle of fish.
Whoa, look at you going. You're just trashing the place. You're getting all your paperwork mixed up.
You know why? You know why he hasn't gotten a title shot? Because every one of his fights, short of a small handful, are decision fights. And those small hands. And then nobody wants to see decision fights at that championship level. Remember, the funniest thing and the greatest thing that he ever did was put on Sean O'Malley's Michael Jackson jacket.
Yeah.
Right?
He has a great autograph, though.
Dvalishvili?
A little smiley face on it. Yeah.
Well, yeah, because you try writing out Dvalishvili time after time after time.
He used to write smiley faces, then he little dots on the 3 eyes at the end. Like, dude, he's got a really good little auto. He likes to play around.
Now,
yes.
Matched up, though, these two match up very well.
It's a good fight.
It's a great fight, but I don't understand. Like, this is what I'm getting at here, okay?
Keep going.
Let's move on a little bit. We're talking about Jeff Neal and Ian Gary. Now,
yes,
Ian Gary has a ton of hype behind him. His last fight,
hype or hate? What are you saying? Hype or hate?
Well, it depends on what side of the political spectrum you seem to be on.
Not the cucking one.
Well, then there you go.
Yeah.
His last fight, he's had what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 fights in the UFC. His last fight was his first fight against any kind of ranked opponent. And that was Neil Magny, who's ranked number 12 in the UFC.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And now in his next fight, he's going out there to fight Jeff Neal.
He was scheduled to fight originally, and Magny stepped in. Yeah.
Jeff Neal got injured. Neil Magny steps in. Some Neil on Neil love. It's great. Got no problem with that. Jeff Neal is the number 8 welterweight in the division right now. Okay. Ian Gary is moving up slowly. I get that. No problem. Because if you think about it, Jeff Neal, his last fight was against the number 3 guy, right? Against Shavkat. So I get that. And this is a division where rankings should actually matter. They don't seem to in the other ones. You see what I'm getting at here?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Now, let's move along to the next one. This fight. On paper, look at it. It's fantastic.
This fight,
Robert Whittaker.
This fight years ago is a pay-per-view.
Well, at least you've got something a little bit closer in the rankings. You've got the number 3 Whittaker taking on the number 6 Paulo Costa.
Yeah, which is good. That's a good ratio there.
Is Paulo Costa's ranking at number 6 warranted? His last fight was against Luke Rockhold.
Yeah, that was a while ago.
Right? No, it was 22, right? He won a unanimous decision.
Yeah, beginning of 22. Yeah.
Won a unanimous decision against Luke Rockhold.
Which was a fight straight out of a Mad Max movie, man.
Weird.
Just like Fight Club blood in them, Tyler Durden, his dumbass, man. That's a fucking
before that it was back-to-back losses from Marvin Vettori and Izzy.
Yes.
Okay. Which we know how those fights went. They were not good fights. They're boring fights. But he still managed to keep a number 6 ranking in that division. When you've got, a number 7 Brendan Allen right at the door. Nasruddin Imavov, who we just saw what he just did. Yak Hermanson, who's sitting at number 10, right? Why aren't these guys getting these fights? Jared Cannonier, I see it. They're number 5. Marvin Vettori, Jared Cannonier, Robert Whittaker, Israel Adesanya, Sean Strickland. Your champion is DDP. So I get that top 5 part. But the fact that Robert Whittaker is 3-2 in his last 5.
Yeah, he hasn't had a crazy loss streak, but he hasn't had a good bout of luck. His luck has been barren.
He's getting up in age too. Think about that. You know what I mean?
A lot of dog fights he was in as well, right? He was in a lot of decisions, a lot of long fights.
Absolutely. Well, he's got what is it? What's his overall record is like 25-7.
That's a lot of fights.
That's a ton of fights when you're talking about a guy that he's going up against who is 11 and something. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous how they match up some of these guys. A lot of these guys were like 11-2 against 11-3 and 12-4, pretty close. But when you're talking about a couple of these Australian guys, Holy crow, the amount of fights that they put themselves through. Which brings us to our main event, Brady.
We've got
how excited are you for this main event?
So I've learned my lesson before with betting against Volk. I told myself I would never bet against Volk. I bet against Volk. No, it paid off. And I've bet on Volk, and it hasn't paid off. I think Ilia Topuria is coming into his own with this fight. I do not think he's part of the hype train stuff, but we're going to see. We're going to see if this dog is too old to fight still, or if Volk comes out with the same Volk from, let's just say, before the pandemic.
Okay.
The Volk before the pandemic. I don't think Ilia is experienced enough to get through a dog fight with Volkanovski.
So what in your mind makes you think that Ilia Topuria is ready for that spot? Let me get this to you very quickly. Okay.
Give me the rundown of his last few fights.
He's had 6 fights. He's had 6 fights in the UFC.
Yep.
Only 2 of those 6 fights have been against ranked opponents.
100%. You're right.
And neither of them have been top 5 opponents. Josh Emmett was his last fight, who's ranked number 7. Bryce Mitchell was his fight before that. Bryce is ranked number 10. Jai Herbert, Ryan Hall, Damon Jackson, Youssef Zalal. Those are his previous fights in the UFC since the beginning, none of which to this day are even ranked opponents. So riddle me this, Batman. How is it that Ilia Topuria is ranked number 3 in this division?
Because of his impressive finishes. And
bullshit.
I'm not telling you I made the rankings. You asked me a question, and I'm trying to make some sense out of it. And what I'm trying to make sense out of is if he's number 3 and he's fighting for a title, they think he's impressive.
Okay. Is he more impressive than Movsar?
Yes.
Is he more impressive than an Arnold Allen?
I think he's on Arnold. I think, yeah, I would say yes.
Is he more impressive than what Dan Ige did this past weekend?
No.
Oh, because Dan Ige's number 12.
No, okay, no, but Dan Ige also had a bad run there for a minute.
Okay. So is Movsar more impressive than a Brian Ortega?
It's similar to me. I'm just going by opinion here. This is my hypothesis.
It's hypocrisy.
No, it's my
word
hypothesis
that you're looking for. Yeah.
Hypothesis.
Because this is what I'm saying about these rankings. They don't mean shit.
I would have loved to see the real fight that Ilia is supposed to be in, and that's against Patty. He owes him for the fucking sanitizer bottle to the forehead, and they've been trying to keep those two away from each other, and I know that realistically, if Topuria ends up taking this title, that's the fight they're going to build up to for Patty, because it's just going to make money, and Patty's going to be like, well, I don't really care if I get my head ripped off and sent into, you know what I mean, the nosebleed section, because I'm going to get paid $10 million on the way out.
Sure, but I mean, who's it going to benefit? Who does it absolutely benefits Topuria, because if, like, what do you got? You've got Patty Pimblett, who, you know, walks around at what?
We've talked about this before. We're not like the Patty thing. I think he's been injured a few times, and he's been overhyped a bit because of merchandise sales and things like that. And you attach his name and you're going to sell stuff.
Sure.
I think he'll forever make money off of his name until he does something dumb. Hence the word until, not if, but until he does something dumb.
Here's the thing. With Patty. You still have to take into consideration he is an unranked fighter, 2 weight classes up from Topuria.
Yeah.
2.
Yeah.
And that's when he cuts weight down like 30, 40 pounds.
Well, he's not going to cut 30 or 40 fucking pounds. They'll meet in the middle.
No. I'm saying like when he fights.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Big Patty goes up too. So if he wants to walk around at like, you know, damn near light heavyweight.
supposedly he's got that in check. He's walking around at like fighter weight, apparently.
Listen, if his bestie in Meatball Molly there is any indication of what they're doing over there right now, yeah, he's got his weight in check.
Yeah,
now,
Molly's a monster.
Back to this main event here.
All right, let's go. Let me hear your take on this fight.
Because I honestly do not think that Ilya Topuria is in any way, shape, or form going to be a problem for Alexander Volkanovski. Alexander Volkanovski has only lost 2 fights in the last 373,463 fights that he's been in.
Okay. Yeah, that's not that many fights.
Those were both against the same person. And it was Islam Makhachev when he stepped up.
Yes.
Everybody thought that he did so much better in that first fight, obviously, than he did in the second fight. And, whatever. Shit happens, but it's always.
There's a huge range difference with fighting a guy like Islam.
1,000%.
Yeah, at a weight class higher than you.
Outside of that, every single person that he's been in there with, and we're talking about the number 2 guy in Yair Rodriguez, the number 1 guy in Max Holloway, 4,000 times? Mm-hmm. The number 4 guy at the time, Chan Sung Jung, and the other number 4 guy, Brian Ortega. He's been in there with all of these guys. Nobody at that weight class has been more dominant for a longer period of time than Alexander Volkanovski. And for that reason and that reason alone, until you prove it otherwise, you do not bet against Alex for this. And I think that you're going to see that this hype train that is Ilya Topuria is really just like hand sanitizer. Boop, very quick on the surface, fades away.
Oh, that was a cute little reference you just made up there like that.
Fades away just as fast.
You can sell haikus and stuff in books and at the Hallmark.
One of my favorite wrestlers of all time.
Haiku?
Oh.
Well, we learn something new every day. Okay, well, let's take another quick sponsor break. And when we get back, we'll talk a little bit of wrestling before we get on out of here. But yeah, I really like what you did there.
Thanks.
Are you in the market for a used vehicle for your family or business? North Toronto Auction hosts public auctions twice a month, and everyone's invited. Hundreds of cars, trucks, SUVs, commercial vehicles, and heavy equipment are available. Plus, travel trailers, motorcycles, snowmobiles, ATVs, and more. View the entire selection at NorthTorontoAuction.com. Bid online or bid in person. Bid on items from government agencies, financial companies, fleet managers, car dealers, and public consigners. For more information, visit us online at NorthTorontoAuction.com.
Hey, did you know that Saturday, February 24th, Destiny World Wrestling returns to Oshawa and the Children's Arena for Destiny's Reckless?
Is that the event featuring the indie god himself, Matt Cardona?
You bet it is.
I heard he's not going to be there alone. I heard Steph DeLander's showing up. I heard Fight or Flight is showing up. Vanna Black, Tara Zepp, Lindsay Dorado, and a whole bunch more.
Man, you better get your tickets now. They're on sale at www.DestinyWrestling.ca.
Don't miss out. Hit that subscribe button to get all the latest from the Law, live audio wrestling. Now back to the show.
That's right. We are back. And I don't know if you've got your tickets yet or not. If you don't, get over there to DestinyWrestling.ca and get your damn tickets. Matt Cardona showing up is a blessing to all of you in the area. We're talking about a guy who is just voted #1, like greatest thing that isn't signed right now. You know what I mean? In the world. Mm-hmm. He's the indie god for a reason.
Apparently he is the indie god. That show is jacked up. They have Lindsay on it. There's a, you can go, you go to DestinyWrestling.ca, go check out the list. And they've got a bunch of new shows that they announced that are upcoming. They got one in Mississauga coming up, another one in Toronto. They've got a lot coming up. Make sure you take DestinyWrestling.ca, bookmark it, and check in on there. They also got a Facebook group. You can find them on social media. But yeah, go check them out. They're probably the premier when it comes to bringing in names here in the Toronto area. So
they're doing big things. They're doing a lot of fun stuff. So
massive stuff.
Now, Brady, let me ask you this.
Let's go.
Let's say it's time to put on one of the biggest promotional events in the world of professional wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
Given the landscape and the atmosphere of what's going on in professional wrestling right now and the behind the scenes and the CNN stuff.
Are you talking about the event Cyber Tuesday? They're bringing that back?
I heard they were bringing Heat back.
Oh.
Shotgun Saturday Night.
I'd watch that.
Right?
Okay, so I got you off topic.
Oh, we're not. But let's say that you've got all of this stuff coming up, and all of a sudden something happens, and a big swerve in the original game plan gets thrown into the mix, and you've got to scramble and figure some stuff out, maybe, perhaps, or this was all part of the plan all along. And part of this process is you put on this gigantic press conference on Super Bowl week in the town where Super Bowl is having their event, and you bring in the biggest name in professional wrestling, and some would say in the world of entertainment on the screen. I'm talking about Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. You bring him in for this presser, and you fill this thing up with 15 to 18,000 people at the event. Over 250,000 people just on YouTube alone watching this live as it happens. The crowd is already not lukewarm to the idea of the announcement prior to that The Rock said he was going to be the one to face Roman Reigns. And they've got this plan in place. And during this press conference, this happens.
Oh, did he have a bug on his face?
The Rock decides to play Grandma Dwayne and get the smudge off of the face of Cody.
Yeah, that wasn't a piece of cupcake. That's just one of his moles. Leave him alone.
Here's my question to you, because now everybody thinks, is The Rock a heel? Oh my God, that was a heel. And then he got in front and he was like, you talk about his bloodline. You talk about my bloodline. You talk about his family. You talk about my family. Yeah, we get it. You're related. You don't have to keep fucking going on about
That's a pretty good impression. I think
it was, spot on.
Dude, we should get you some voice acting work. I'd just call you the cock.
I'm like Rich Little up in this thing. If Rich's name was Dick. Here's what I'm asking you right now. Do you really think that The Rock is a heel going into this? Or what if, could you imagine if this whole thing is a swerve? Because that slap right there looks like nothing. And we've seen this before in the Brian Gerwitz era, where guys have come out in that, they hate each other, and bang, they give them the slap to prove that they don't like each other. But there's no fisticuffs. There was no big brawl on the stage. It was just a slap and a bunch of barking back and forth by little kids. They knew it was going to get broken up. Or did they need it to get broken up to put on the image of it? And you're still going to see Roman Reigns lose everything to Cody because of something The Rock does that keeps him in that babyface status.
Well, one of the things that was predominant during this, you can't see him in the picture, but Seth Rollins being there and kind of standing off to the side. A lot of people gave him shit and gave that character shit, for him not stepping in or doing anything until The Rock came up and slapped him and he got pushed back. So they do Monday Night Raw. And Cody's out there talking. He's like, Rock, you put your hands on me. And he's like, one thing about me, I'm going to hit you back. So then Seth comes out, and then he's in the ring, and he's like, hey, look it, I respect you, and you're right, you should fight Roman Reigns for the belt, and basically where we're at is that you can't do this alone.
Right.
So I've got your back.
Right.
And we'll take down the bloodline. It's great storytelling. It's like they planned this the whole time.
Wild, because they've got another pay-per-view coming up in between.
In person. Right? Yeah.
And what better way to get this over than a tag match?
Rock needs a warm-up. They did it with R-Truth and Miz. When R-Truth and Miz had a warm-up match with Cena and The Rock. I think they do need to do that. I think it sets also a tone for Rock versus Roman down the road too, if The Rock or Roman cost each other the match.
Well, could you imagine if we have This tag match leads to The Rock versus Seth Rollins in night 1, Cody versus Roman in night 2 of WrestleMania. The Rock beats Seth Rollins in night 1, so he's got a belt. But Roman loses to Cody in night 2,
Now he's
causing
officially
the heat between Roman and The Rock. I got my job done for the bloodline and our family to have this. What happened to you?
Dude, TNA or AEW needs to hire you.
and then you have the entire thing cashed in. Here comes Mr. Cash In himself, R-Truth, with Damian Priest's briefcase.
Don't fucking make me hard, man.
I thought you would like that.
We're on YouTube. And wherever you're listening to podcast providers, because we're going to give this to SMNE Radio because we didn't put up an official episode, so they get this instead.
Yay, midweek loveliness from us here at the Law Live Audio Wrestling.
Yes.
So
I'll attach an interview. Don't worry. Keep listening, guys.
There is a lot of potential storyline coming out of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of different ways that they can go. And everybody seems to be so up in arms, like, whoa, relax, just let it play out, and you'll be happy. Only 50% of you are going to be happy. The other 50% are just going to be the miserable, pissed off people that you always are whenever you watch professional wrestling.
Oh, that's just professional wrestling fans. They don't like, the biggest. Actually, we uploaded a short on the YouTube channel today from your interview with Conrad from a couple months back. You guys can check it out. Go through the channel. There's an interview with Chris and Conrad Thompson, for infamous Conrad Thompson from Save for Conrad. Cheap plug. So it says the same thing. It kind of made him realize when he booked the Ric Flair match that he realized for the first time ever that the people who hate wrestling the most are the fans themselves.
Yeah.
And it's a bit disheartening when you're a promoter or you're somebody that's in media and you only see negative.
You know who I blame for this?
Who do you blame, sir?
Howard Stern.
Mm-hmm.
I blame Howard Stern because that culture was bred and built by him. We talk about when he first started, everybody was like, oh, half the people that listen to Howard love Howard. The other half that listen to Howard hate him, and they're just there to shit on him.
So we're officially back.
Become that.
We're officially back in radio when we've committed to shitting on Howard Stern.
We're back at it.
We're back at it. So fuck Howard.
Wrestling fans is nothing but a universe full of whack packers.
Yeah, there. Or pests. I
said it.
At least the pests were more like a 4chan crowd. And shouts out to the 4chan crowd before you became manipulated. Because when you guys were fucking with Shiloh LaBeouf or whatever his name is,
right.
Oh my God, that was some good shit. Okay, so moving on from the WWE, I honestly I agree with you. I think they are in the prime of storytelling right now. I think everyone should sit back and just enjoy this ride because you're going to get everything you want and plus more.
Let me ask you this, Brady.
No.
Okay.
You asked me enough.
Have a good day.
Okay.
And good night. No.
So what are you saying?
Let me ask you this. You ever had a job?
No.
Where, because you've worked in acting, so you understand like the preparation that it goes into setting up your dates and booking your accommodations in time, and like, none of this last minute bullshit stuff, right? You know where your job is going to be the next week. After that I'm going to be here, and after that I'm going to be here. But have you ever had it happen where you woke up one morning and all of a sudden you got a phone call that said, yeah, we don't need you on this set anymore. In fact, we don't need you working for our studio ever again. Has that ever happened to you?
No, but I did that to a television series.
Okay.
I woke up one morning and said, I'm not coming back to set. And they're like, what? There's 2 episodes left of the season. I'm like, yeah, no, I quit.
And they replaced you with a dog.
They didn't replace me. They wrote me out.
Well,
the last 2 episodes, and then shut the whole series down after that.
Got hit by a car, and there's no need to come back.
They didn't shut down because of me. It's just you could see the writing on the wall. Oh my goodness! Speaking of the writing on the wall,
This is something that happened to Scott D'Amore. A lot of people have talked about this, and this is exactly what happened to Scott D'Amore, the president of TNA Wrestling. After all of this time, being the guy most vocal about TNA, being the guy always putting it over, never say die attitude, would come out there and, integrate himself into main event matches to try to get the product over.
Yeah.
Probably get himself over at the same time, but mostly the product to get over. Then he finds out one day that, hey, I'm fired. And everybody's like, what happened? What happened? What happened? Well, turns out that Scott D'Amore supposedly tried to buy TNA. He saw writing on the wall that there is great potential in this thing. In my opinion, I think that he saw that there is this new format coming out, and TNA Wrestling wasn't going to be a part of it. And the format I'm talking about is all of these streaming services coming together to form this mega streaming service where all sports all over the world, everywhere, all day, all the time, no matter what, is being seen here. We're talking a streaming service where you can get PFL, Bellator, UFC, WWE, ROH, AEW, any of these providers, be it ESPN or Warner Brothers, anything, all coming together in one spot. None of which were TNA, because TNA owned by Anthem. Anthem probably not wanting to put a lot of money into what they want to do. And Scott saw that there needed to be money put into this thing, thus signing people like Dolph Ziggler, signing people like Brooks, right? Signing talent to come in and help get that product over. I think then he went to offer to buy the company, apparently. The story is that he offered to buy the company because he believes in that product. There's no doubt about it. As far as a company like TNA, nobody could be a better spokesman for TNA than Scott D'Amore, But Anthem is a company that looks at their assets just as that. They look at them as assets. And this TV program is nothing more than an asset to them. And they said, wait a second. If you think this thing is getting so popular and so big, maybe we need to get a little bit more involved.
So do you know anything firsthand, or you're just going off of reports and assumptions, or what's going on here?
Well, I do know that Scott knew about this ahead of time.
Okay.
I do know that Scott had about, a few days anyways. This did not come as a surprise to him, because I talked to Scott afterwards. I sent him a message saying, man, heard the news. Sorry to hear, because Scott and I have been trying to link up for a while now, since before Vegas. But it's always been like, just, I'm busy, he's busy. We just haven't been able to do it. And he even says to me, he says, now you know why I've been so hard to track down. I'm like, absolutely, I get it. Right. And it wasn't an ambush. He knew about it, that it was coming, but he didn't know, like, oh, there's such and such time on such and such day, this is going to happen. Right. Nobody else seemed to know about it. He kept it pretty close to the vest that he knew it was coming. Right.
He's always been a private guy when it comes to stuff like me and you have known Scott for years. Anybody in the Ontario wrestling industry, you've probably worked with Scott if you've been around for a minute, and he's been private about a lot of his stuff. So I'm not surprised.
Well, there's also an unwritten kind of a thing in wrestling, is that if you get something that's going to be big and happening to you, you keep your fucking mouth shut about it until after it's done, because if you open up to somebody about it, chances are it can get screwed up. And then you look like a dope. So he was behind the scenes trying to get all of this stuff done for his friends, his family, his, people that work for him, that put all of their trust and belief into Scott to make TNA what it was. They were bringing it back by the TNA name, right? Was it the old TNA? No.
So let me ask you a question then. So sure. Scott's financially fine as far as everybody knows, unless he's a degenerate gambler or something like that. Scott seems to be fine. So does he retire from the wrestling industry and do something else, or do you think he shows up on or shows up either on TV or backstage somewhere, do you think he shows up at a different company? And if so, what company?
Well, I think that Scott D'Amore is too long in the tooth to be showing up on TV as a worker. Those days are done. Unless they bring back that Shotgun Saturday Night.
No, I just mean as a
he always had a
personality.
place there. Yes, he could show up as a personality. Is he going to show up in the WWE? Like, he could be a very good hand to have on the creative end of things. There's no doubt about it. He's got a great brain for this. He's been around long enough, and he knows that end of it. He knows the TNA end of it for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But it's being done somewhere already, and that somewhere is AEW. That mentality of the we're not number one, but we are the best number two out there, you know, that WCW mentality, that's what AEW has. That thing that sets them apart from WWE, that's what AEW has. So TNA, to say that they needed to come back and make things different, completely revolutionary, it's going to be really hard to do because almost everything has been done already. Even ECW back in the day knew that they weren't going to be able to compete with WWE and WCW, so they went a more adult route. So that's been done. AEW, what they're doing with bringing in a couple of older names and a lot of young guys to fill it up, very WCW, very TNA, what TNA did before. So that's been done again. So I don't know what revolutionary stuff TNA was really expected to do. And that's not a knock on any of the talent because they're still putting on great matches. You know, some 5-star matches are coming out of TNA. There's no doubt about it. But as far as a creative mind goes, where do I think that Scott D'Amore would be best suited? In AEW. Absolutely in AEW. They could use a guy like Scott, no doubt about it.
Yeah, they could.
And
he's got friends there. He's got like Don Callis, and he knows, like, anybody that's been around for a minute knows Scott or has some sort of relationship with Scott. Probably more positive than negative. If you look at the response to what happened when he was fired, the internet, majority was a lot of fans saying like, "Thank you, Scott," and this sucks. And then there was a lot of people in the business themselves that came out and said, "Thank you very much, Scott, for everything you've done for me," because he's made a lot of opportunities for people. He's very well fucked a lot of people over too, and that's the price that you have to be when you're in a stage where you got to be a promoter and you're dealing with tons of personalities that all are out for the same goal themselves. So I 100%. Get it. He could be made out to be a bad person by a bunch of people. He could be made out to be the best guy ever, depending on what side of that coin you're on when you're dealing with him. But I do think you're right. I think Scott's creative enough, and I think AEW has a lot of problems. So adding somebody in there with experience isn't going to hurt. No. So in my opinion, I think that's where Scott ends up. Let's hope he gets a job there, and wish him all the best. Yeah, there you go. And for the fine folks over at TNA, I mean, listen, fantastic workers. You'll be fine. As much as people like to say that the heart and soul is gone from TNA. Scott D'Amore was the heart and soul of TNA. No, you dipshits. Okay, you're the heart and soul of TNA. We can only swear so many times. You're the heart and soul of TNA. I try. All you workers, all of you fine people working in production, all of you people that have been giving up your time and energy for sometimes free to see TNA succeed. You're the heart and soul of that company, and you guys are still there, and you're going to do great. Let's just hope that this isn't the corporate bullshit, blah, blah, blah stuff that they come in with. And they're like, yeah, new guy's in charge and we're going to do great things. And our door's always open, but we're not taking any questions right now, which is kind of what happened at their talent meetings. Well, I do think they're sell everything. I do think their first pay-per-view back is going to be very low buys. Well, they have New Orleans coming up, and then the big one is the one after that, ladies and gentlemen. We're talking about they're going to be in Windsor. TNA is going to Windsor, and that is Scott's hometown. The D'Amore family built half the city. Think about that for a second. So you've got, now you've got no ring. You've got no students to help out. Because it's not like, Scott's Can-Am Wrestling School or BCW is going to be so willing to do all of that. You can get it. It's going to cost you a price and somebody's going to get paid. But you're not going to have that same kind of reception.
wins are still going to come out, but I think that their attitudes and their venom is going to be a little bit different. You're not going to see those, yeah, let's go TNA kind of guys out there. That you're going to see a lot of those like,
we want Scott. We want Scott. We want Scott.
That's what you're going to see. And then after that, they're going to Philadelphia, Brady.
And then after that, they're bringing back the 6-sided ring because you know what fucking TV people are like. And there's somebody that is a TV executive that's in charge of a wrestling company, which is never, ever in the history of the business has ever worked out.
I mean, it worked out well for WCW, right?
No, Jim Herd did not do well.
Oh,
Pizza Man didn't do well. Pizza Man. Pizza Man.
So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. It's been one hell of a week. It's been crazy. I mean, what more can I say? We're a couple days late and a couple dollars short, but man, at the end of the day, Brady, we get it out there.
Well, that's because I fought the law and the law won. Well, all right. You can follow us on socials. Subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube. If you're on a podcast provider, please give this a rating. Whatever you rate it, but it just adds to our growth. And same here if you're on YouTube, just give it a like, give it a comment, share it with your mother, share it with your father, share it with your sister, your brother, your dog. Go back, find a squirrel, play it for him.
What about
it
cousins?
all helps our growth.
What about cousins?
No, cousins are cut off. Don't share with your cousins.
All right. You heard that? Sorry about that, Eric and Stacy and Andre and all the rest of y'all. But Brady says, F you guys.
Yeah, get on out of here. All right. Well, we'll be back out officially again on Sunday with another episode of the Law Live Audio Wrestling. We'll have another lovely guest for you. If you're listening on our podcast providers, stick around for Tid's Kick in the Head with Gregory Iron. And that's it for me. Chris, you got anything you want to say?
You know what I got to say, Brady.
What?
Tuck your chin.